Hey everybody, what is up? Welcome back to Final Trade. We are back as promised for the Pokemon Market Walk. We're going to start here in Sword and Shield. We're going to go through that, and then we're going to go through the second half of Scarlet and Violet. We're going to skip some of the earlier Scarlet and Violet sets. But have you been paying attention that this is up to $598? It's unbelievable. I zoomed this out earlier. I was looking at it, and look at this, $297 a year ago. So it has doubled in the last year. And for so long, everyone said, oh, Sword and Shield's just a terrible set. Nobody cares about it. And here we are about to cross $600. 19 boxes in the market and 4 sold in the last month. So not a fast mover by any stretch of the imagination. And it's going to take a while to get to those gaps up to 750, but still amazing to see that it has doubled in the last year. And again, just like every set, I say this from time to time, but every single expansion of every game, every product from every expansion from every game, you will always hear someone say, oh, well, this is a bad product. It's overpowered. It's underpowered. It's printed too heavy. The players don't like it. The pull rates are terrible. The pull rates are too easy. The trainer gallery is awful. Every single product, everybody has all the same litany of complaints about. And yet, what do we see when we get out into the future? Here, these have doubled in the last year. Rebel Clash at Sword and Shield number 2. $350, and yeah, you can see how this kind of turned upwards here. So it was $230 back in February, and then it's come up $120, so up 50% since February. So it made a hard turn upwards, and for a long time there really was not a lot of demand for this expansion, and just, man, it somehow avoided most of the print to oblivion of 2021, but still took a while to take off, and now has really pulled ahead of a lot of the kind of second round of sets. So, we'll say all the way through Sword and Shield 3, well, this one's still 239, 244, okay. Don't ask me to do math so often. $244. So, see, this one is still struggling a bit below 300. We've got this one, Vivid Voltage, and Battle Styles, I think, are the only three that are still have not broken $300. And the thing is, all of these are down in the lower half of $200. So $234 for this. What have we done in the last year? Yeah, $150 up to $234. So yeah, 50% increase, a little bit more than that, but it's off of a pretty low base. And it was not until earlier this year that this finally went out of stock on Pokemon Center. So no, wait, not Darkness Ablaze. That was Vivid Voltage. So Darkness Ablaze had been out of stock for a while longer. Now, 19 sold in the last month, 28 in the market. So pretty thin depth, all things considered. Here we are, Vivid Voltage, $212. And yes, this is the one that did not go out of stock on Pokemon Center until somewhere around February or so. And then we start seeing it come upwards. So it's done very well since you could buy it in the last weeks of it being in stock on Pokemon Center for $144. Remember, Pokemon Center sells MSRP, so it was $144 there, and today we're at $212. So we've come up $70 or so in about 6 months. So about 50%, but again, not off of a tremendous base. It's not like, well, we'll get to Evolving Skies. Oh, you better believe it. Battle Styles, wow. $208. Yep. Still not performing very well. This is the worst performing Pokemon booster box of the last 4 years. The single worst performing one. And if we go back, well, the market price was $130 and today it's $206. So it's still come up more than 50% in the last year, and this is the worst performing box. But 93 out there in the market, 49 sold in the last month. What do the gaps look like in this? Not a lot of gapping, because yeah, the sellers don't have a lot of optimism that the uptake will be very fast, so there aren't very many good gaps in this. So don't expect a lot of quick movement on this one. And now we get into some of the best boxes. Man, the next 4 sets we have what? Chilling Reign, Evolving Skies, Fusion Strike, and Brilliant Stars are the next 4. Yeah, $427. Look at that. Look, whoa. It's so funny because both times on this plot that it jumps back up, you see exactly what you expect. A little bit of a pullback, but it jumped back up because that quantity that's still existing in the world is going down. And, I'll ask once again for the people who claim that the closets around the world are full of these boxes that will keep the prices from ever appreciating. Where are they? Where are they in the last year when it's gone from $212 and more than doubled, just about doubled, to $427? Where are all those closets full of product? There are some closets out there, and they do have some product in them. And some of that product did come out in the last year, but it still was not nearly enough compared to the demand for these products. And so we see this is the market. These are the data. This is how the price has risen in the last year, despite all the product in closets that we're constantly told is going to come out and crush the market. What about gaps in this? Well, we're up to $500 here. Not too many more sealed boxes. Looks like about 10, 12 boxes, and it'll be up to $500. We should expect a bit more to come out of the closet because, wow, look at that in the last month. 427 down to 410, so it's lost $17. I've noticed the same thing on Fusion Strike. In the last month, it came down a bit. 86 boxes on the market and 27 sold in the last month. Moving on, Evolving Skies, yes, $1,965. And in the last year, it went from $660 to $1960, so it tripled in the last year. Again, if the boxes are full, if the closets are full of boxes, where are they? There just aren't enough. People would be so excited to lock in their profits with a tripling of this box in the last year. There just aren't enough boxes to go around. And guys, it comes down to what I always talk about. These are scarce collectibles that people destroy for fun. The amount of them left in the world goes down every day. That's why the price marches up so relentlessly. $2,000, yeah, $2,100. It's going to be a while to see anything dramatic. I mean, we'll hit 3,000 eventually, but it'll probably be sometime next year before we hit 3,000. And what does our market depth look like? 198 in the market. So there's actually quite a lot in the market, but only 17 boxes sold in the last month. So yeah, I would not count on even seeing 2,500 a box by the end of this calendar year. Fusion Strike, this has come down a little bit. Yeah, 792 market, and it's down at 735 market today. So it's lost about $60 on the market price, and the lowest ask is 750 right now. And what do our gaps look like? We got a lot before we get up to 800. Yeah. Now, unless the sell-through rate is pretty healthy, nope, 15 boxes a month and 147 in the market. That is amazing. That shows you just how coveted these boxes are, that there can be 150 of them in the market. There's literally 10 months of supply in the market, and yet the price is this high because people are willing to pay it for how good these boxes are. And man, Fusion Strike at one time had such a terrible, terrible reputation. I need to go back and try and find Mason from Cardinal Gaming's video. He did a video back in 2022. Man, I wish I could go find that video where he talked about what his distributors were making him take at the time. It was unbelievable. It was something like, don't quote my exact numbers, it was something like he had to take 12 cases of Fusion Strike in order to get something like 3 boxes of Brilliant Stars. It was just unbelievable how much Fusion Strike was drowning everything else in the market at that time. And now here we are in 2025, and it's bounced off of 790, and it's still down. It's still at 750. Brilliant Stars, $409. Oh no, is TCG's data going to be crazy? Nope, not too bad. Okay, so it took a big jump up from about 200 to the high 200s, and then another leap up from 300 to 400. So just 2 big bounds upward in the last year, and it got all the way up to 436, and it's back down to 400 on the market price. So see, guys, to To the extent that there are boxes that will come out of the closet and will slowly arrest the price increase for a short period of time. This is what it looks like. This is it. And yet, in the last year, it's gone from 180 to 400. So it's still more than doubled in the last year. This is the best the market can do for holding these prices down. So don't hold your breath expecting any of these Sword and Shield era products to crash. They have all been out of print for way too long. And I look at the supplies of them out in the market, not just the booster boxes, but when I'm on my own time and I'm looking at things like the stadiums and the build and battles and everything else, man, the supplies are drying up of these things. What do we have for this? 110 in the market and 30 sold in the last month. So about 3.5 months of supply. Astral Radiance, $375 in the last year. We have come up from 170 to 390 market. And so the current ask has fallen down a little bit. Even if you just take the current ask price of 370, you've gone from 170 to 370. So you've more than doubled in the last year. And do we have any good gaps coming up on this? 400s? No. Got a lot of boxes clustered there in the low 400s. And what was our 1 month number? 9 boxes, yeah. So again, another one that's probably not going to take a lot of big gaps upwards anytime soon. We may hit 400 by the end of the year. But again, you know, it's as the prices get more and more expensive, the laws of economics demand that the demand itself will go down. So the only thing balancing that is the supply only goes down. The boxes get opened and destroyed every day, and so the supply never comes back. Lost Origin, Sword and Shield, number 11, $485. And you see this is also bounced off a temporary peak at $540 here and fallen back about $40 from there more recently. But a year ago, it was at $197. So it is up 2.5x in the last year. 2.5x. And let's see, 500. I don't know. There's not that many boxes before around 550, but are they moving at a decent rate? 26 a month. Huh. Okay. So yeah, we could see 550, even 600 by the end of the calendar year. That's possible. 167 in the market. And again, normally if you saw these kind of numbers, 167 in the market and 26 moved in the last month, you would expect the price to be falling very hard. Very hard. But yeah, the price has come back in the last month a little bit, but there will be excited buyers who want to come in and get them at that price. And overall, I would expect these to keep marching up into the second half of the year. Silver Tempest, the final Sword and Shield, and man, this got so many reprints. So much product of it was out there at one time. And again, this went out of stock on Pokemon Center back around late November, early December. I'd have to go look. I have the exact date marked, but it's been out of stock for a while now, and it has certainly come up a lot since then. So if we take that notional November time frame, it of course was $144 MSRP price on Pokemon Center, but $165 market price on TCG Player. And since then, it's moved up from that $165 to $350. Again, another one more than doubling in less than a year. And it's funny, you always see this same kind of performance. It jumps up and has a little pullback and jumps and has a little pullback and jumps way up real fast here and has a little pullback to consolidate. And there just aren't enough boxes to go around compared to the demand for them. High 300s into the 400s. So yeah, we would expect probably not even to see 450 by the end of this year. Wow, 63 sold in the last month. So I don't know, if we have a couple more months with that kind of good uptake, we could see the boxes tighten up enough to get us to 450 by the end of the year. But I really wouldn't expect it. And you know, if the Pokemon market, the modern Pokemon Scarlet and Violet market finally breaks and starts to crumble and people start to go away and the prices start to crash, well, you could see a lot of these old Sword and Shield boxes really take a big turn downwards. But overall, if we're looking at the 1, 2, 3 year timeline, all of them would be well past these prices by then. That's what I expect. So we're going to jump straight up to Scarlet and Violet 6. We're going to skip the first several ones. Yes, they've had good performance. They're all in the low to mid 200 kind of range, but they're old enough. We kind of expect that. They had a long enough period of being at ridiculously low prices, some of them below $100, that it's not that surprising that as the market for Pokemon has tightened up so much in the last 10 months, that those took off a bit. We expect that, and it's not that interesting. This is where it starts to get more interesting. Scarlet and Violet 06, Twilight Masquerade, 285, and man, we had this nice little reprint earlier this year. You can just barely see it. So the price had come up to 230 and it pulled all the way back to 207, and then it took back off to 284 market price today. And so that was the reprint that we got at the time, and it has just gone crazy since then. Yeah, we got 300 right on the horizon. And what is the sell through? 49 boxes in the last month. So, that's the only thing that may help us is the boxes aren't moving that fast for how new of a product this is. And we may get lucky enough that some more reprints hit and hopefully the rest of the Pokemon market crumbles. I mentioned it in another video in the last day or so that one of the things I've seen around online in the last week was photos of people from their local pizza places and their local donut shops having Pokemon displays of sealed product for sale. And, it's exactly like the old saying that when your shoe shine boy is giving you stock tips, the market is cooked and it's about time for the whole thing to crash. So, I look forward to it, and I still dream that we could make it to Black Friday 2025 with the Pokemon market absolutely crush and get some monstrous deals. I really hope we could get there. It's unlikely. It's probably going to take longer to unwind all the insanity and for enough reprints to absolutely destroy the market. So Stellar Crown, I threw this in just because it's number 7. It's in between 6 and 8, as most of us know. And I didn't want to skip it and tried to justify skipping it. But this one has never had the kind of crazy path that the last few have. In fact, up to about 8 months ago, it was still at $100. And then it just jumped up into the 200s and $215 at the market price. Of course, $216 at the lowest ask right now. So this one has just never had the hysteria around it that the other ones surrounding it have. That Twilight Masquerade and Surging Sparks back up to $250. Wow. Lots of vacillating around here. Now, we got some reprints of this. Probably this was it. February peaked at $265, and then it came all the way back down to a market price of about $217, bounced around a bit, and it's back up to $240 market and $250 on the lowest ask. So this one, for a little while, a few weeks ago, I had commented that this one was kind of looking like it was losing popularity and the price was going down too much relative to Twilight Masquerade. It looks like it's recovered from that. The hysteria is back on. It's back on the menu, boys. So if we look down here for gaps, yeah, it'll get up into the 250s, 260s. And how many boxes is the market chewing through? Last month, 400 boxes. Oh, man. See, this is what makes me think the Pokemon hysteria could go on for a little while longer, except you see the videos, you see guys like Rattle Pokemon documenting all the insanity, all of the bad behavior from folks going to buy Pokemon. You see the photos of local pizza places and donut shops having sealed Pokemon displays for sale in their pizza place. And you just got to think, with how crazy this market has been, how expensive this product has been, and for how long it's been that way. And Pokemon Group has been printing like crazy, as hard as they can for months now, since at least February. And yet it hasn't come under control. But it's just like every time you see a market in an absolute mania, it looks like, how could this possibly go on? And it goes on, and it goes on, and it goes on. And you say, how could it go on? It keeps going, and it shocks you how long it goes on. And then, all of a sudden, it starts to break down, and over the course of a couple of months, it completely turns around. There's absolute capitulation, all of the weak hands sell out, all the reprints keep hitting, everything flips to the other side, and all of a sudden you can get all the product you want below MSRP, sometimes below wholesale prices, shipped to your house for free. And the same thing will happen here. I don't know when, but man, you look at stuff like this and you say, it's got to still be coming. Okay, Journey Together SV09 235 for the lowest ask today. We're going to catch the release window here. So we'll go to 6 months, peaked all the way at 274, and then it was in that same time period that these other sets were getting a lot of reprints. I suspect this was just left on the press extra long as its first printing because the Pokemon Company already knew what the demand looked like and the problems they were facing. And so if I were them and looking at a March release timeframe, I would have just left this on the printing press for weeks to build up enough supply to keep the prices of this from going nuts. So it's come down to 234 and it had a round trip through 212, bounced off and is $20 up. So, you know, the market can eat it all up. Another thing I always say, printed to oblivion doesn't last forever. Last month sold 118 boxes, today 121 in the market. And Destined Rivals number 10, of course. When you've got a set like this, everyone's going to get nostalgic for it. And Team Rocket, yeah, everyone was going to go crazy for this set. Amazing to see that. Okay, so that was pre-release prices. And then we had about 255 by release day, and then we're down to 248. So we've been stable since release day. Again, hopefully this was left on the printing presses enough that it's not going to immediately tighten up the inventory and see the prices rocket up from here. See what I did there? 250s, 260s, lots of boxes piled in at those prices, but I bet the sell-through rate, yeah, it's still too early in the life. These sell-through rates are horribly skewed because of that. It's the most recent product. It just recently was released and it was highly anticipated. So 1,500 boxes in the last month. We will have to see where and when the reprints arrive. If we can get some more reprints, you know, as long as they don't take so much time to switch the presses over. You want them to just leave the same product on the press longer and absolutely crush that product and then move on to the next one. It's when they're trying to do small reprints of everything and you have all that press setup time again and again and again, and they lose the momentum, they lose the efficiencies, and then you don't get as many cards shoved into the market. There's another thing to talk about here, which is all the talk from a couple of years ago about Pokemon printing billions and billions of cards, how they went from printing about 2 or 3 billion cards a year up to 9 billion. I think they got up to 11 billion. I went and I pulled all those numbers recently. I'm going to make a video about that in the coming days. But as we can see with the prices, it has not mattered. All the Sword and Shield prices, Evolving Skies tripling in the last year. It has not mattered that in 21 and 22 and 23 and 24, they printed 9 and 10 and 11 billion cards per year. It was not nearly enough. The market ate it all, and the prices keep rising. So I'm going to make a video specifically about that. Yes, I know I keep expecting the market for Pokemon to start to crumble. We've seen cracks for a long time, but like I said, markets can just stay elevated seemingly against gravity for unbelievable amount of times before finally capitulating. We'll get there eventually. I don't know, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, maybe it's another 12 months. Maybe Pokemon USA pulls back the printing. I know I saw the numbers. They had pulled back by like 1.5 million cards in 24 from what they printed in 23. Maybe they've got the pedal to the metal and they're planning to print 25 million cards, billion cards. Who knows how many this year? Maybe they'll accelerate and crush the market, but maybe. There's a tiny chance that they won't. There's a tiny, tiny chance that we never see that collapse, and instead we just kind of get a skim and then it's back up and it's stable. It's not parabolic like it's been for 10 months now. There's a small chance that could happen. And as I look at the market longer and longer, I think the chance of that is slowly rising, but I would still say it's like it's slowly risen from a 1% chance to a 3% chance. So there is that very, very small minority future where we could see not a absolute crash and collapse of Pokemon prices, but simply stabilization. I don't think it'll happen, but it's possible. I still expect there to be a huge crash, absolute capitulation. And I see things like I go over to the cesspit that is Reddit from time to time, and I'll read the comments on r/Pokemon TCG, and you'll see these people who, unfortunately, they've been driven away from their collecting hobby because the cards are unobtainable at reasonable prices. The cost has pushed them away because the prices have gone up so much. And for some of the people, maybe they don't like to order online, they like to buy locally, and they can't get the product locally at any price right now. And so as we see more and more of that, we just expect that to accumulate eventually into a market breakdown, and the much hyped and anticipated down cycle where guys like you and me can come in here like we were doing in 22 and 23 and buying cheap Pokemon at below wholesale prices, delivered free to our door in unlimited quantities, and all of that stuff's up 4, 5, 6, 700% since then. So hopefully we get there, and man, it would be a dream to hit it by Black Friday. We'll see. I'm not betting on it yet. Let me know what you think, guys. Let me know what you think about splitting the market walk into 2 segments. I just started covering way too many products and talking too long and having too many opinions, and I've been so busy it's hard to block out an hour and a half to record all of it at once. I'll probably continue to do it as 2 segments because really over time we're just going to add more and more Pokemon products to the market walk. So let me know what you think. Thanks to everyone who makes this content possible, especially my very generous supporters on Patreon. Like, comment, share, and subscribe, and join me on Final Trade.